the golden age of Spanish royalty, when honor was measured by the blade and secrets lurked behind every tapestry, a story unfolded that would shake the very foundations of the kingdom. Picture, if you will, the grand courtyard of the royal Palace of Spain, its ancient stones weathered by centuries of triumph and tragedy, where kings had been crowned and wars declared, where the fate of nations had been decided with the clash of steel and the weight of royal decree. The morning sun cast long shadows across the cobblestones, each ray of light seeming to illuminate the very air with anticipation of what was to come. The royal court of Spain stood in absolute silence, a sea of velvet and silk frozen in time, as King Alfonso Quiñones advanced with deliberate, measured steps toward the center of the great square. His dark eyes, like polished obsidian that had witnessed the rise and fall of empires, fixed upon a young woman dressed in the simple, coarse clothing of a palace maid. The contrast was striking. Here was absolute power confronting absolute servitude, royalty facing the lowest of the low. With a gesture that sent ripples of whispered speculation through the assembled crowd like stones thrown into still water, he pointed his gleaming sword, its blade catching the morning light and throwing brilliant reflections across the stone walls directly at her heart. "You are Isabel Mendoza." His voice rang out clear and commanding, echoing off the ancient walls with the authority of absolute power, reverberating through the very stones that had heard the voices of kings for generations. "I have seen you practicing swordsmanship in secret, hidden away in the forgotten corners of my palace like a thief stealing knowledge that was never meant for your station. Now, before God and this entire kingdom, before every noble family that has sworn fealty to the crown, you will demonstrate these skills you thought to keep hidden from your sovereign." Isabel remained as motionless as a statue carved from marble, her simple brown dress, patched and mended in places, speaking of years of humble service in the great palace, contrasting so sharply with the opulent surroundings that she seemed like a shadow cast into a world of brilliant light. The golden banners bearing the royal coat of arms, the jeweled ceremonial weapons displayed on the walls, the rich tapestries depicting centuries of Spanish victories, all of it served to emphasize just how far removed she was from this world of power and privilege. But something in her posture, something in the way she held her shoulders and kept her chin raised despite the overwhelming circumstances, revealed an unusual dignity that made even the most arrogant nobles pause and take notice. From a shadowed alcove beneath one of the grand archways, where the morning light had not yet penetrated the ancient stones, an elegant figure watched the unfolding drama with barely concealed tension that threatened to crack her carefully maintained composure. The Duchess of Almeria, her silver hair perfectly arranged despite the early hour, her keen eyes that had witnessed decades of court intrigue missing nothing, studied the scene before her with the intensity of a chess master contemplating a crucial move that could determine the fate of kingdoms. Her gaze moved continuously between Isabel and the king, and those who knew her well might have detected the slight trembling of her gloved hands, the only sign of the emotional storm raging within her composed exterior. What drives a king? A man who could command the death of any subject with a mere gesture, who held the power of life and death over millions, to challenge a simple maid to a duel before his entire court. What madness or deeper purpose could motivate such an unprecedented display of royal attention toward someone so far beneath his station? And what secret could she possibly hide that could change not only her destiny, but perhaps the very future of the entire kingdom? To understand this extraordinary moment, we must step back in time to when Isabel Mendoza was simply another face among the countless servants who kept the great palace functioning in its daily rhythm of power and ceremony. For 28 years, she had moved through the corridors of power like a ghost, her life marked not by celebration or recognition, but by the quiet dignity of honest service in the shadows of greatness. To the noble ladies whose elaborate gowns she pressed with careful hands and whose precious jewelry she polished until it gleamed, to the important courtiers whose elaborate meals she served and whose private chambers she cleaned with silent efficiency, Isabel was nothing more than a competent but utterly forgettable shadow, appearing when needed and disappearing again into the background of palace life. The other servants whispered about her peculiarities. Some claimed she spoke too well for someone of her station. Others noticed how she studied the old portraits in the royal gallery with unexpected interest, particularly one of the former king and queen. One particular morning, this mystery deepened significantly when Isabel found herself thrust into a situation that would forever change how others perceived her, and perhaps more importantly, how she perceived herself. She was in the servants' quarters, carefully mending a torn apron by candlelight, when she heard shouting from the main corridor. Angry, threatening voices raised in confrontation, and beneath them, the frightened whimpering of someone much younger and more vulnerable. The sounds of distress cut through her like a blade, and without hesitation, she abandoned her sewing and hurried toward the commotion, her heart already racing with righteous anger at what she suspected she would find. What she discovered in that dimly lit corridor made her blood boil with a fury that surprised her with its intensity. Lord Hernandez, a visiting noble known throughout the court for his fondness for wine and his wandering hands, had cornered young Carmen, barely 16 and new to palace service, her innocence making her an easy target for his predatory advances. The girl was pressed against the cold stone wall, tears streaming down her face like silver rivers in the torchlight, as the drunk lord made increasingly inappropriate advances with the confidence of a man who had never been denied anything he desired. "Please, sir," Carmen was saying, her voice breaking with fear and desperation. "I must return to my duties immediately. The head cook will be furious if I'm late with the morning bread, and I cannot afford to lose this position. My family depends on the wages I send home." "The bread can wait," Lord Hernandez slurred, his words thick with wine and arrogance, reaching out to touch her face with fingers that reeked of alcohol and worse. His movements were clumsy, but determined, the actions of a man who saw servants as objects for his entertainment rather than human beings deserving of respect. "You can spare a few minutes for a man of my importance and standing. I am, after all, a guest of the crown." "No." Isabel's voice cut through the scene like a blade forged from pure steel, clear and commanding in a way that made both participants freeze in surprise. She stepped forward with the confidence of someone who had never learned to doubt her right to intervene, placing herself between the lord and the terrified girl like an immovable barrier. Her stance was protective but also somehow regal, as if she were a guardian angel sent to protect the innocent. "She cannot spare any time for this disgraceful behavior. Carmen, return to the kitchen immediately." Lord Hernandez turned toward Isabel with the slow, dangerous movements of a predator disturbed in its hunt, his wine-clouded eyes struggling to focus on this new obstacle to his desires. "Who dares to interfere with my business?" he demanded, his voice rising with indignation at being challenged by what he saw as a mere servant. "Do you know who I am, girl? Do you understand the consequences of standing against a man of noble birth?" "I know exactly what you are," Isabel replied, her voice steady and clear as a bell, never wavering despite the obvious danger of confronting someone so far above her station. There was something in her tone, some quality of absolute moral authority, that penetrated even Lord Hernandez's wine-addled brain and made him step back involuntarily. "And Carmen is under my protection now. You will find your entertainment elsewhere, or face consequences that extend far beyond this corridor." That night in her tiny room, Isabel took out her most precious possession, a medallion showing half of a royal shield, broken irregularly along its center. Her adoptive mother had given it to her on her deathbed, whispering words about her true lineage that Isabel had always dismissed as fever dreams. "Who am I?" she whispered to the darkness, tracing the jagged edge where the medallion had been, violently separated from its other half. Meanwhile, King Alfonso paced his chambers like a trapped predator, tormented by recurring nightmares. At 35, his handsome features had hardened under the weight of kingship. The same disturbing dream haunted him nightly, childish laughter echoing through palace gardens, and a medallion split in two. He opened an ornate chest and withdrew his own medallion, half of a broken royal shield, identical to Isabel's, though neither knew of the other's existence. His dying father had given it to him with strict instructions never to reveal it to anyone. Since Queen Mariana's death 3 years ago, Alfonso's legendary swordsmanship had become an obsession. Every dawn found him practicing until exhaustion, driven by visions he couldn't understand. Often his gaze would wander to a window where he sometimes glimpsed a maid with disturbingly familiar eyes. That morning, seeing Isabel serve wine during council, He nearly dropped his goblet when she turned her head in a particular way, a gesture that triggered fragments of memory he couldn't place. Their eyes met briefly, and he saw something that made his breath catch. Intelligence, pride, and strangest of all, recognition. The revelation came at dawn when Alfonso, sleepless again, ventured to the eastern courtyard for practice. The sound of steel cutting air stopped him cold. Hidden behind a column, he watched in disbelief as Isabel executed complex sword movements with impeccable form and precise footwork. This wasn't amateur mimicry. It was the refined technique of formal training in the noble art of swordsmanship. Most shocking of all, her style belonged to a rare method taught exclusively to the royal family and their designated masters. When Alfonso's boots scraped stone, Isabel froze, sword still raised. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, advancing. Toward her, Isabel didn't drop her weapon or kneel as any maid should. Instead, she lowered the blade slowly, meeting his gaze. "Your Majesty," she said with reverence that somehow lacked proper servility. "Where did you learn the royal technique?" Alfonso demanded. "I don't know, Your Majesty." "The movements come, naturally, as if I remembered them." "Impossible." Alfonso drew his own sword. "Show me again." What followed left him stunned. Isabel responded to his attacks instinctively, her body moving with reflexes that mirrored his own training perfectly. For breathless moments they exchanged blows until, with a subtle wrist twist, she disarmed him completely. Horror crossed Isabel's face as Alfonso's sword clattered to the ground. She had just committed treason, touching the king's person, defeating him with a weapon. Men had been executed for less. Alfonso stared at his empty hand, then at the woman before him. Something stirred in his memory. The face of a girl very similar to him, laughter echoing in these same gardens. "Who are you?" he whispered. Before Isabel could answer, palace guards arrived. As they seized her, Alfonso's expression hardened, from confusion to cold fury. This mystery would be resolved publicly and definitively. That evening, the great hall overflowed with nobles celebrating Alfonso's coronation anniversary. No one noticed the king's unusual silence until he suddenly rose, stopping the music with a gesture. "Bring the maid Isabel Mendoza," he commanded. Guards escorted Isabel inside, her simple dress wrinkled from confinement, but her posture remaining dignified. The Duchess of Almeria watched with hidden concern as Alfonso announced his shocking discovery. This woman was found practicing advanced swordsmanship in forms known only to royal blood and designated teachers. Even more disturbing, she disarmed me with techniques I mastered only after years of training. Gasps and murmurs swept the assembly. Alfonso raised his hand for silence. "There is more to this maid than meets the eye. A secret I intend to discover, before all of you. Therefore I challenge Isabel Mendoza to a public sword duel to be held in 1 week. The court exploded in astonishment. A king challenging a servant was unprecedented. If she wins, which will not happen, she receives freedom and a noble title. If she loses, she will be banished from Spain forever and have her greatest secret revealed to all." Alfonso approached Isabel, lowering his voice. "The secret you may not fully understand, the one hidden beneath your clothes on a chain." Isabel's hand moved instinctively to her throat where the medallion lay hidden. Faced with hostile nobles surrounding her, she met Alfonso's challenging gaze. "I accept your Majesty's challenge," she replied clearly, shocking the court with her direct manner of address. Alfonso's expression revealed a flash of satisfaction. 1 week. Isabel was confined in converted chambers, not quite prison, but not freedom either. On her second day, an elderly man appeared. "You require proper training," announced Master Vargas, once the kingdom's greatest swordmaster. "The king has granted permission to prepare you. He wants a worthy opponent, not a simple victory." During intense training sessions, Master Vargas was amazed by how quickly Isabel absorbed his teachings, as if remembering rather than learning. "That sequence," he commented one afternoon, "I taught to only one student besides King Alfonso, his father, when he was heir prince." That night, Isabel examined her medallion by moonlight while Alfonso studied his matching piece in his chambers. Elsewhere, The Duchess of Almeria whispered to a hidden portrait. The moment approaches. Your children will finally know the truth. As the duel approached, danger emerged. Isabel's practiced sword was sabotaged, her water poisoned. You have powerful enemies simply by existing, the Duchess warned, pressing a key into Isabel's palm. Use this at midnight in the library's west alcove. At midnight, Isabel discovered hidden royal chronicles. On one page's margin, a hastily scribbled note read, "The Queen has given birth to twins. His Majesty acknowledges only the male heir, twins. Royal twins." Isabel stared at the words until they blurred, understanding flooding through her. Her discovery was interrupted by guards searching for her, but she escaped with this earth-shattering knowledge. An old royal counselor revealed the truth. Your mother, Queen Eleanor, mother to both you and King Alfonso, two legitimate heirs, divide a kingdom. You were declared dead at birth, but secretly given to loyal servants. 3 nights before the duel, Alfonso summoned Isabel to his private study. Alone together, he asked, "Do you know why I truly challenged you?" "To humiliate me publicly," Isabel replied. Alfonso turned from the fireplace with an ironic smile. "The truth is more complicated." He unlocked a drawer and withdrew an object that made Isabel's breath stop, a medallion identical to hers, forming the missing half of the royal shield. "My father gave this to me when I was 5, Alfonso said. "He made me swear never to show it to anyone." With trembling fingers, Isabel drew out her own medallion. Alfonso's eyes widened, seeing the matching piece. "From the moment I saw you practicing those forms, something awakened in me," he said quietly. "Memories of a little girl with my face, laughing as we played in the royal gardens." Their hands moved toward the medallions, drawn to complete what had been broken. But before they could join the pieces, the door burst open with urgent news of conspiracy, forcing them apart. The next night, the Duchess revealed the full story to Isabel. When Queen Eleanor went into labor, the king was away fighting. Twins were born, you and Alfonso. The king's brother convinced the council that Spain needed certainty. You were declared dead to prevent succession crisis. Your mother's final act was breaking the royal medallion in 2, ensuring each child received half. She believed that one day the pieces would find their way back together. Master Vargas confirmed. "The king knows everything now. The duel must proceed. Canceling would raise questions threatening the realm's stability." He presented Isabel with her father's sword, finely crafted with the royal emblem. "What happens if I win?" she asked. "That cannot happen," the Duchess said firmly. "A public victory would fracture the kingdom with rumors. You must lose, but with skill that earns respect. Then tomorrow," Isabel said with determination, "we will both win and we will both lose." Dawn broke golden over the royal square, already crowded hours before the scheduled duel. Alfonso appeared first in formal black and gold, mourning and triumph combined. Around his neck, partially visible, hung his medallion. Isabel arrived in simple white dress with burgundy cloak, colors subtly echoing royal tradition. Her mother's silver brooch held her hair, and her father's sword gleamed with quiet dignity. "Remember," Alfonso said quietly as they faced each other, "this performance is for them, not us." "Begin," called the master of ceremonies. Their first exchange was cautious, testing. Isabel used common techniques while Alfonso attacked with controlled force. But as comfort grew between them, the exhibition became extraordinary. Isabel's defenses became sophisticated, her counterattacks precise. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Isabel successfully defended against complex sequences. "She fights like a courtier," someone whispered. The siblings found strange harmony in their steel dance, communicating what could never be spoken aloud. With each minute, Isabel revealed more skill, Alfonso responding until their exchange became conversation more than combat. In the duel's middle, Isabel executed a distinctive technique created by Alfonso's father, known only in royal tradition. Gasps exploded among knowledgeable observers. The sun climbed higher as neither gained decisive advantage. Both fought as equals, masters anticipating each other's moves with supernatural precision. Finally, in a spectacular exchange showcasing their complete training, They disarmed each other simultaneously. Both swords landed crossed in the sand center as brother and sister stood breathing hard, eyes locked in understanding. Then Alfonso did the unexpected. He drew out his medallion, holding it high for all to see. Isabel understood, revealing her own medallion. For the first time in 20 years, the broken royal seal was visible together. "People of Spain," Alfonso called out, "today you have witnessed, not punishment, but reunion. Isabel Mendoza is my sister, my twin, born the same night but hidden to ensure our realm's stability." The crowd erupted as understanding dawned. She bears the blood of kings and has proven herself worthy. From this day she shall be known as Princess Isabel of Spain. Isabel stepped forward. "I pledge loyalty to crown and kingdom. We are stronger united than apart." The Duchess of Almeria approached, carrying an ancient princess's crown. Before the assembled kingdom, Princess Isabel received the crown that should have been hers from birth. As the circlet settled on her brow, catching sunlight and throwing rainbow reflections, something profound shifted in Spain's political landscape. The kingdom that awakened with one heir ended the day with two. The duel that began as challenge between king and servant transformed into public acknowledgement of truth, correction of historical injustice, and reunion of siblings who had spent their lives carrying inexplicable loneliness. As the sun set over the royal square, painting ancient stones in amber and gold, the people carried home memories of the day when truth proved stronger than political necessity, when justice delayed became justice served, and when the broken became whole again under the eternal Spanish sky.